You hear me? There we are.
Jesus is life, and everybody wants eternal life.
Thank you, Jesus.
When we come to Him, the living water fills us up.
Can't get enough.
Singing and laughing and praising His name. The world is lots of glitter, but it's just not the same. 'Cause Jesus is life, and everybody wants eternal life. Jesus is life, and everybody wants eternal life.
Thank you, Jesus.
When we come to Him, the Holy Spirit fills us up.
Can't get enough.
Singing and laughing and praising His name. He's got me singing right through the rain. 'Cause Jesus is life, and everybody wants eternal life.
Thank you, Jesus.
I don't know, as a proud supporter of the Disco Sucks movement, I don't know if I can get behind this one, but
I rest my case.
Yeah, I mean, we knew 2025 was going to be weird, but like, holy smokes, we certainly started one off here. Welcome everybody. It's Presbycast. It's January 9th. 2025. Thoughts and in a serious note, our thoughts and prayers definitely go out to Southern California and everybody out there. It's kind of I won't say ancestral homeland, but it's where I spent a considerable amount of my life, a little bit to the northwest of that area, but one thing I don't think people realize is just how quickly the wind can change and blow any of those fires into a different direction. And so, please, if you, are in and around those areas, take care, take caution, and open up your homes to anyone who may need it, because it couldn't be more serious out there. But we're going to try to provide a little bit of escapism from the weary world by predicting what's going to happen in this weary world, at least while we're still in it, and while it's a world that we can still call ours. So we put together a team, I guess you could say, of the greatest minds that no one else would choose. You can think of this as, these are the resumes at the bottom of every other pile, which, in our inverted way of looking at things, puts them at the top of ours. So couldn't be happier. And, what the heck? Let's get this thing started.
Well, we think after our predictions tonight, everyone will be post-millennial and or at least optimistical millennial. But maybe not. And
a little for Post Malone.
And we've got two newcomers, and we've got two or three guys that have only been here maybe once. Or no, we got one that's only been here once, and then we've got a couple of semi-regulars, and we'll deal with them. But in the spirit of the afterglow of Festivus, I'll quote the great Frank Costanza, and I'll say, "Welcome, newcomers." And so welcome, newcomers. And let's introduce those guys first. Carrie is a PCA ruling elder in Maryland. If he'll unmute himself, he can introduce us to himself, and we're glad to have him with us. You may have seen his disco stylings a few minutes ago on screen. Are you there, sir?
I am here. Thank you, Lord. I am here. Carrie Gilliard, ruling elder, Wallace Presbyterian Church in College Park, Maryland. And I actually like disco.
Well, there's some good parts, but a lot of it was like, I referred to that opening song as 70s variety show music, and when disco translated to mass market television in the 70s, it was pretty rough. And and when the Lawrence Welk show kind of had their disco hour, that was
when disco sold out. That
That
was
was
the
when
moment
the-
that it'd be
that
a
was the
bridge too
moment.
far for you.
That was the moment. That was the moment.
And Carrie, are you old enough to remember Donnie and Marie?
I am.
Okay,
I am.
well, some of these guys aren't.
I remember Donnie and Marie. I remember Electro Woman and Dinah Girl. If you really want to go back and grab some old cartoons and old shows that use cheesy disco music from back during that time. So
I don't even remember that. So maybe I just blocked it out. So how long have you been in the PCA, Carrie?
let's see. Joined the PCA in 2009, right after my wife and I got married. Came over from the Evangelical Free Church. My old church folded, and I needed somewhere that was reformed consistently. Coming from the Free Church, I don't know how it is today, but back then it was a weird mix of 55, 45 non-Calvinist to Calvinist folks, and most of them were Calvinistic Baptists. And of that Calvinistic group, about 30% of them were actual Reformed folks. So it was
and a fair number of charismatics, kind of light charismatics in that group too, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody was premillennial.
Okay. Yeah. Well, like the EPC in that respect, with a weird mix of, or the Anglican Church North America, they also have weirdly charismatics, we're told, but I've never run into one, and I don't know that I want to. I just don't think I do. So we'll come back to you, Carrie, as we start spinning out our predictions, or just airing. It's not too late to air grievances, or not too early, we might say. So we're going to welcome in a veteran now. A veteran, I remember him being a blog stalwart back in the Federal Vision days, back in the what was Greenbaggins, Lane Keister's blog. You remember those days, Reed? This is Reed DePace. He's the senior pastor of, is it First Presbyterian Montgomery? Is that where you are?
You got it. Yes.
Sort of an historic church, although you're not in your old historic location. I think you moved to a more modern building, but that's certainly an interesting place where you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here. Your authentically broken faith journey, as we like to say.
That's a good summary. So I spent got saved through the ministry of Campus Crusade in the early 80s at University of Delaware, and was a Grace Brethren for 17 plus years, triple dunkers, feet washing, having a good time. Went to that seminary out in Indiana for a little while. And
so I got to ask, if you know about foot washing, is there another adult in the house that you could bring into the room and demonstrate the technique for us?
No.
Oh, dang it.
Because
you can make good money for that sort of thing today.
It was men washing men's feet, women washing women's feet, a little bit of respect there. And I only have my wife here at home right now, and she'd probably try and smack me over the head if I asked to wash her feet.
Well, that would be entertaining too, but as you will.
So anyway, was planning on doing missions work with Grace Brethren Church in Porto, Portugal in the mid-90s. Needed to finish up a seminary degree, got into Westminster at Philly, and graduated in 1999, and had been persuaded through the ministry of Dick Gaffin that paedobaptism was the correct explanation, and joined a PCA church that let me do the licensure with them, the licensure process. And my first church was in Western PA. Second church was back in the Maryland area, northeast corner. And then this has been the third church I've been at here since 2008. And in 2003 or 4, because of the church I was ministering at in Maryland, I decided to check into the Federal Vision stuff. People in the congregation had some Moscow connections, and it was a part of the problems that they are having that I needed to be the referee to. And so that's how I got involved in the first Federal Vision War. I think the second one, we're not going to call it Federal Vision. We're going to call it Christian Nationalist War. But there's most certainly something in that's Federal Vision core.
Yeah, the Venn diagram, as I like to say, with the Federal Vision and Christian nationalism, it's not, it's not a 0, but it's certainly not an 8. There's some overlap, to be sure.
A lot of snuggling.
Yes, man cuddling, I think they call it out there. I don't know. So it's good to have you with us, Reed, and we'll hear from you. I've already seen a list of your predictions, and they're outstanding, and we'll hear those. We've also got Ryan Beasy. He doesn't really need to say anything right now because everyone knows who he is, and he's here with us. We sort of think we gave him a start in the podcasting industry and created a monster, and we're still dealing with that, but we'll see. And Chris Drew, our regular Walking Through Westminster guy, he's our token OPCer. I did invite another one, I think, and he couldn't make it, not in preference to Chris, but in addition. So that's good. We'll hear, I'm sure Chris has lots of questions for and about the PCA, so I'm sure we'll hear some of those from him. We've also got for our, we want to broadly appeal, and Job Dalamba reaches a special segment of the American population. Job, can you tell us what segment that is?
I don't know. I don't know which one you're referring to.
Well, I mean, you used to work at a Motel 6, and
that's true.
you've had some interesting experiences and life experiences.
So you're referring to the lower middle class section of America.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can appeal to those folks.
Well, you're relatable, as the kids say. Maybe that's what it is.
That's nice of you to say.
And you seem to be coming to us from a bunker, and that's fine. And then we also have...
It's a long story.
Yeah. A recent first-time guest, Wilson Van Hooser, who's one of the few former NFL players who were involved in Deflategate that we've ever had on the show. So...
as I've said before, I can neither confirm nor deny.
I saw something with... I think when I turn my TV on, it defaults to that Samsung TV Plus, and it's just all these free channels, and it's gotten on the Saturday Night Live on loop thing, and I think they had Bill Belichick on Saturday Night Live, and he was being grilled about Deflategate from several years ago. And I thought about you.
In 4 months when I was with the Patriots, I saw Bill smile twice. And one of those was because he was smiling at us rookies because we had, in our rookie talent show, we had a guy make fun of him and absolutely roasted him. So he made us run extra, and he started smiling when we were throwing up.
Yeah. And the other time he smiled was when you left, right?
He was pretty. It was a little more cheerful than I was thinking he would be. I was like, man, Bill, that's hard. I'll let you like short white receivers, but...
Well, maybe you weren't.
Randy Moss, Wilson Van Hooser. Who can really choose between the two? When it
rolls
really
off the tongue. We're both number 81, but so is Aaron Hernandez. But that's a different,
We're glad you've avoided the legal system, at least. So, all right. So, Kerry, I wanted a little more geographical diversity in this show. So I had a couple of guys I invited from the West Coast, and they couldn't make it for one reason or another. You're on the East Coast. You're further east and north than we have people a lot of times. So we don't know much about the PCA up there. We don't know much about the culture and all that. Don't know what it's like to live, fairly near DC, I guess. But what's the report from your part of the world?
Well, let's see. PCA here, we're a little bit, it depends on which church you go to. We range from very Presbyterian to slightly broader evangelical, here and there. It really depends on which congregation you go to. As far as Maryland, Maryland's interesting. Maryland's very interesting. I've been here my whole life. Uh, Originally from Baltimore, went to a generic independent Baptist church. I won't say generic. My old pastor, he graduated from what used to be Capital Theological Seminary, Washington Bible College. But that nice little dispensational background really taught me to love the Bible. And eventually it also led me to, hey, what's this Synod of Dort thing here that everybody keeps talking about? And I was like, okay, this actually does make sense from Scripture. And after that, it was just a nice little progression toward covenant theology, abandoning dispensationalism and everything else like that. There's a lot of churches in Maryland. There's a lot of churches. There's a lot of Methodist churches in Maryland. There are a bunch of PCUSA churches in Maryland. The section of Maryland that I live in, closer to DC, all of the PCA churches are north of Route 50. So if you think NFL for a moment, FedEx Field is it's no longer FedEx Field. I forgot what they changed it to now, but where the Washington Commanders play, slightly a little bit south of Route 50. After that and RPC Bowie, there are no PCA churches until you get to Virginia. So I live in that weird side. I actually drive 40 minutes now to get to church.
Oh, wow.
I once proffered that if the United Kingdom was willing, I would trade Maryland for Wales straight up yesterday.
So
I feel like it's a fair value.
I can't believe Presby has not asked you yet for your commentary on the old HBO series, The Wire, and whether that bears any relation to reality on the ground in what some people call Bodymore Murderland.
Yes, I'm from Baltimore. I lost probably about 90% of my Baltimore accent from that time period. The Wire is accurate.
Have
It's
you ever
accurate.
eaten? Do you ever eat? Have you ever had lake trout?
Yes. There's a place up on Ricestown. There's a place called The Roost up on Ricestown Road in Baltimore. The best lake trout in the entire city, bar none. There's a lot of new construction in Baltimore now, all over the place. So there's a bunch of new places popping up now, but The Roost was my spot back then.
Aren't they dredging the harbor, which is hysterical given season 2's plot points?
Here's the funny part. I've only seen bits and pieces of The Wire. It really did not. It's one of those things I'm going to go back and watch eventually. But from the bits and pieces I saw, I was like, yeah, that's about right. Yeah, that's accurate.
Just get to season 2 and realize that it's just a bunch of Polish drunks bickering. Is like the main cause of the feud for season 2, and I can say things like Polish drunks because that's most of one side of my family. So
that's part of South Baltimore, but yeah.
So,
But
Kerry,
yes.
how are you feeling about 2025? Whether you want to talk about, evangelicalism, where the church is going, where the country's going, any perspective you choose.
Let's see where the country's going. I think some people will be more wedded in 2025 to their anger at other political parties than they will be actually wedded to their particular tribe. I saw a bunch of my friends today actually upset that former President Obama and former President/President-elect Trump were having a good conversation today and laughing. I think Western journalism even published an article and said it was almost as if they didn't actually believe their own rhetoric against each other. So it was
That's crazy talk.
It's like, yeah, it's hyperbole, and unfortunately, I told some people, I said, wait till you find out that the people you like don't hate the people that you hate. a little bit of a shock. Some people were like, I don't like the fact that he's talking with him. I was like, oh, well, they actually don't hate each other. There's going to be more of that starting to become a little bit more visible in 2025.
Yeah.
I hope some people will, I'd hope that some people would start to walk away from being extremely partisan and ready to chop people off and excommunicate people and everything else along those lines over politics.
Well, we're going to have to do, when we annex Canada, we have to deal with all those people too. So, yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, it was funny for about a day, but if you put yourself in the position of someone who lives in another country, saying that you're going to be annexed or conquered is not, probably not all that fun. But I mean, I think let's get this stuff out of our system in the next 11 days, and then act like a real country for a while.
I hope it's just Trump being Mr. Entertainer, Mr. Say things to get a reaction out of people. I hope it just stops there, and he actually doesn't push a whole bunch of this stuff. We got more important things that we really need to focus on with this country right now. So,
like Greenland.
Yeah. You warm up with Greenland, then you move on to the big project.
I like to think that like Trump leaned over to Obama at the funeral, was like, "You remember when you said I wasn't going to be president? Here I am again." Like I would just, I think Barack was, kind of the end of a certain. Well, I guess Trump did come after Barack, didn't he? But like there's like a definitive cutoff of when like people could laugh at themselves, like even when they were president, and strong disagreements that I've had with a number of former presidents and will continue to have. But like you do get the feeling that at a certain point you just kind of have to laugh at it. But yeah, the fact that it's Richard Nixon's birthday.
Yeah, Presby's hero, Richard Nixon. There you go.
This date also has other significance, which I won't go into on the show, but it doesn't make me love the man less. Let's put it that way.
All right. So, let's hear your list. You have some, I think they're mostly PCA, Presbyterian predictions for 2025, and they're all completely serious and well considered. So why don't you go ahead and run through your list? I think that would be a good way we'll go from the cultural to the ecclesial, as it were.
All right. So by midsummer, the drones will be back, but no one will pay attention, and the demons will have to come up with a new shtick. Number 2, Russell Brand will accept a pastoral position at Bethel Redding. Within 6 months, Bill Johnson will announce his retirement, with Russell as one of his co-pastor replacements. Number 3, Musk and Ramaswamy. By the way, could a guy from India have a better last name than Ramaswamy? So anyway, Musk and Ramaswamy will release a Doge report saying they were unable to complete an audit on where all the money the U.S. sent to Ukraine was spent. A few months later, the Forbes richest 2025 list will include a new billionaire named Zelensky. Following in the footsteps of Raquel Welch, Joe Rogan will join an OPC church, and there will be an online argument over whether his infant baptism in the Roman Catholic Church is valid. Number 5, finally giving in, David French will ask President Trump to sponsor him in a name change petition to legally change his name to David Greenland. Russell Moore will file a counter petition suing to disallow Trump's sponsorship. Number 6, Senator John Fetterman, Democrat, Pennsylvania, will switch parties, formally acknowledging what everyone suspects, that he actually is and always has been a populist. Dr. Oz will admit he wasn't MAGA after all. Number 7, at the annual meeting, the delegates to NAPARC will not even bring up the chattering of various newer, young, restless reform voices clamoring for a reformed grand unity denomination. Number 8, anticipating a decade of good economic trends, eggs will drop below $3 a dozen, a gallon of milk and a 6-pack of Bud Light will cost less than $4, and a new baby boom trend will push U.S. birth rates almost up to replacement level, about 2.3. Number 9, both having lost their homes in the LA fires of 25, Mark Hamill and James Wood will face off in an election for the new LA mayor. Hamill will win because Woods will say it's Newsom's fault, and Hamill will say Bernie Sanders got it right when he said it was climate change. Number 10, Trump's Don Roe doctrine will take its first steps toward changing the face of U.S. policy for the next 100 years. After talking Denmark into giving up that giant iceberg up north, convincing half of Canada to cede and become sovereign states of the U.S., and moving the southern border down to Panama's Darien Gap, Venezuela will kick out their dictator Maduro and plead for admittance as the 61st states of the United States of North America. Number 11, thinking it will solve the Pakistani Muslim child rape crisis, most of England will convert to Islam, only to find that it results in more sexual abuse, not less. Number 12, Dr. Harrison Perkins will publish 5 more 200-plus page books in less than 3 months. He'll swear he's been working on them for the last 5 years. Number 13, PCA will answer the CN overture by reference to its previous Theonomy report sometime in the 70s, and Stephen Wolfe will make an appearance on Presbycast. And then a last one, number 14, the EPC will do nothing about Greg Johnson in 2025. There you go.
Well, you sound like a professional newscaster, Reed. I mean, that was polished and it was wide ranging. It was a little darker than I expected in a couple of spots, and mostly political. So yeah, your wife is blessed every morning at breakfast, I'm sure, when you get to unload all that on her.
Well, when I was a young man beginning to express interest in women, my dad told me that a woman was going to have to find me handsome, handy, or humorous. He told me I needed to learn how to tell jokes. So I found myself a woman who loves silly jokes and is partly blind. So we have a great marriage.
Handsome, handy, or humorous. They can pick 2 at any time. Is usually how it works out.
Can only have 2.
So
kind of a long shot prediction, but do you think there's any chance Russell Moore goes to Turkey for leg extension surgery?
No. But I don't want to. I want to talk about Russell Moore in any surgery.
Yeah, Ryan, I'll send you a link.
Yeah. I mean, I might know some. I mean, not for me. Yeah, I mean for somebody.
You're asking for a friend. Know. I get it.
Yeah,
You're a giver.
For a friend.
You're a giver.
Oh, I've got to remind everyone that I once did a meme with Russell Moore and his bobblehead, and they were roughly the same size, and I had items not to scale or something like that. But yeah, we were busting Russell years before anyone else was, and then we got tired of it, as you should at some point. So yeah, you're doing material there. I think that's what they call a tight 5 in the comedy business, Reed. And while you're talking about your wife being partially blind, is that why you wear? I mean, you're dressed conservatively tonight, but every time I see you at a conference or something, it's like a 70s tourist with color blindness kind of went wrong. So is that right?
Yeah, that's an accurate description. I do that to distract people from looking at my face.
Okay.
So
I mean, it's almost James.
If the 70s
James
Mayo
Flanagan.
cookbooks gained sentience, that's kind of what the angle you're going for.
Yes. Sounds good. Definitely not John Travolta and disco look, Carrie.
Well, we can hope. That's always an option. It's always an option for you. All right, Chris Drew, we don't want to discriminate against the micro-denomination representative here. And just because we
were in the pool.
Just because we're 10 times larger as a denomination, that doesn't mean we're 10 times better or necessarily that we're 10 times worse. But I'm sure you have some questions for these assembled PCA worthies for how to be awesome like we are.
Well, yeah, I'm sure we could give you plenty of advice on how to be better. One of the things, the reason I sort of, I guess, ended up on this episode tonight is I really only had one major prediction for tonight, and that was in the year of our Lord 2025, the PCA will be, as far as I am aware, the only denomination that says it's Presbyterian and yet does not have a binding directory for public worship. Take
All right,
that for what it's worth.
Brothers, I think we probably have some agreement here that we should fix that. And there are not a lot of overtures in the pipeline yet. Maybe they're in the pipeline, but they're not on the web page. One of them is to grant constitutional status to 3 or 4 fairly innocuous chapters from the Directory of Public Worship. For those who don't know, right now the only chapters that are constitutionally binding have to do with one sentence and one paragraph about marriage, and then the sacraments, and there's probably one other one, maybe the membership vows, things like that. But yeah, we're pretty. We got that peaceful, easy feeling, and we know that no one will let us down because we're already standing on the best Presbyterian ground, Chris. Come on.
Oh.
So does anyone else want to, I'm quoting an Eagles song for young people. Sorry.
Yeah.
Been a rough night, man.
We don't
listening to the freaking Eagles, man.
As Big Lebowski fans, we do not like the Eagles, but we're making it up as we go along here. So does anyone want to react to Chris's statement about our non-binding, pretty loose philosophy of worship? Read.
Yeah, in all seriousness, I don't understand. I mean, I do understand, but I don't see the point of arguing against making that whole thing constitutional. The various things that people get uptight about are already covered. For example, men, elders leading in various parts of worship, that's already in the larger catechism. So it's not like any of the other parts are going to bind someone's conscience to practices that they don't already believe are biblical. So I question, let's just put it that way, the folks who are up in arms about this. So I know that some of them made it clear that they're up in arms because they want the freedom to continue to have women doing things that God reserves for the elders of his church. And maybe that's the fight we need to have.
All right. Wilson.
I just feel very triggered that Reed just pushed upon us that the larger catechism is binding. I mean, come on, Reed. No, in all seriousness, I mean that yeah, he's right, and he's also right because Reed, you are in Montgomery, and I'm from Montgomery, so we got a lot of Montgomery happening on this podcast right now. So I'm with you on that.
Are you familiar with the what is it? I don't know if it's a Lucinda Williams song, maybe a Graham Parsons song. The angel, send me an angel that flies from Montgomery. Do you all know that song?
Oh, it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah. But no,
great John Prine cover of that song.
Oh,
by the way.
Okay, John. Okay. Yeah.
I agree with Reed. I think it's just a matter of we do have it, and kind of as I was saying, tongue in cheek, we need to use what we have. We have not just the shorter catechism; we have the larger catechism. We have the confession, and those are not things we just give lip service to. We actually use them. We don't just use those to take our exams and then do whatever we want while waving the PCA flag or getting our Bryan Chapel issued PCA card. There you go. It's official. I'm a real pastor.
$100 on the wall right there.
There it is, right there.
So that's the ministerial fee gets you that? Is that what they call it?
Yep, and it's already expired.
It's not mandatory. It's not mandatory.
I didn't even know this thing existed.
It makes me feel very special, though.
So, Chris, what was that?
I didn't even know such a thing existed. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You have a little card that you can. The Boba
gets
Fett
you-
membership card.
It gets you 20% off a cup of coffee at Denny's too, I think.
Oh,
Is
well, that's
that- I
genius.
think that's right. I think that's right.
Or
All right, Wilson.
Starbucks if you live in a big city.
Oh,
Well, I guess.
that's a spendy proposition now.
I think they actually
Um,
price 20% at Starbucks.
All right, let me give you a tip. And I don't know if this will work anywhere else, but it worked for me a couple of years ago. You know, as an elderly man, you know, Sarah Morris referred to me as, quote, the elderly. She told her child not to run over the elderly on the stairs at church, and she was talking about me. But you know, we have to go to the bathroom a lot. You know, we never pass a bathroom, so I'm going to get on this plane. And I thought, okay, I need some caffeine, but I don't want to go to the bathroom. So I ordered a double espresso, just straight double espresso at Starbucks, and they didn't know how to ring it up. No one had ever ordered just a double espresso with no dairy products and sugars and syrups in it. So I got it for free. So try that next time you go to the airport. Just order a double espresso, and maybe in frustration they'll just give it to you.
That actually, it brings to mind something else I wanted to bring up tonight. A prediction for 2020. Yeah, 2025. So that is an issue of competence, and I think what we're seeing right now in California, what we've seen in certain other jurisdictions around the world, in Canada, the United Kingdom, there is absolutely going to be an explosion of really a crisis of confidence in the leadership of our nation and some of its institutions. I think a lot of it's going to be become increasingly evident, and it's going to cause increasing social turmoil and probably maybe some political dislocation. I think we will see that happen in California as a result of what's happened here. I'm not, there are a lot of people who think that this will result in no change in California. I'm not so sure about that. When I see what happened to the Pacific Palisades, what happened to coastal Malibu, all those areas along the Pacific Coast Highway, and what's going to happen is it won't be so much the desire to rebuild, that will be there. It will be the impossibility of being able to rebuild that will produce some pretty substantial change.
A lot of those homes very grandfathered in to old building codes, depending on how long, and those sites wouldn't necessarily be granted today by any means.
Oh yeah, all the homes that I saw that were burned down on the ocean side of the Malibu. Is that the Pacific Coast Highway that goes right down there?
Yeah.
Presby? I can't. Yeah. It's just I'm like that. I don't see any of those homes getting rebuilt. They're not gonna permit it, and it's gonna and just everything surrounding this whole disaster down there is just making it abundantly clear that there are priorities in those. That a lot of our political leadership have priorities that just so many people just do not care about at all.
Yeah,
a lot of emperors wearing a lot of non-clothes.
Yeah.
We don't want to give financial advice on the old program, but this will affect insurance rates nationwide. It's going to make home prices go up in desirable areas because more people are going to leave California. It's not going to be good. I mean, it's going to be like a mini COVID, I think, economically. And I think, Trump may hold them hostage. He may say, okay, the condition of getting this federal money is you're going to jump through my hoops. I can see that happening because he doesn't.
And I think he would right. And I think he would have the political cover to try to do that too, because I think other people will see what's going on. Yeah,
there's no electoral consequences to him for shafting California, which I don't think will happen. But boy, the temptation's there. And as Carrie was saying, it'd be nice if we didn't have perpetual combat and war. But there are people who want that, and it may be entertaining for a while, and it gives you a dopamine hit. There's entertainment value in it.
Be angry, yeah. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was really nice. Comedian Tim Dillon today posted on his Instagram story He feels incredibly lucky to be in a hotel and away from the madness. To anyone that isn't as fortunate, please DM him, and I will get you and your family a hotel room. Or he will make a donation in your name to the Ukraine. Whichever you choose. It's a tough decision. A hotel room for you and your family, or weapons to prolong a war in Ukraine. A hotel room, or explain to your children how important the Donbas region is. So, I mean, a lot of tough decisions to be made out there.
That's good. I have another one, Brad.
Go ahead.
Can I
please.
fit one more in?
Sure.
This is Resby's fault because he brought up Russell Moore's leg length, and that is that Christianity Today is going to continue to implode. They've gone to, what is it, bi-monthly editions. I think it goes online only within 2 years, and I think Russell Moore will be gone roughly at the same time.
Well, that would be a big story if it happened. All right, Wilson, do you have a short list you want to give us?
I got some quick hitter fun ones though.
Let me get my rim shot button ready.
Finally, some levity on this program.
I know, yeah, I know.
We are getting Greenland too.
Was that a serious one or a joke? I'm just kidding.
No, I was just saying.
Right,
we're getting Greenland. We're getting Greenland.
Yeah,
I'll shut up now.
In light of my, I don't know if you can see this. This is my special edition Zach Bird shirt from General Assembly last year.
Like cornstarch.
Like in the graveyard, the plot thickens, and it's also, don't miss the sleeve. Look at that.
That's young Zach Bird.
A young Zach Bird right there. So here's.
I thought that was Joe Biden with the Aviators.
So here's one of my predictions. I think we're going to have another classic Zach Bird speech at GA this year. I don't know what the topic is going to be.
Yeah. So what kitchen item or food staple will he reference?
You know, part of me just kept coming back to. I was like, I wonder if a cat is going to be somehow, and maybe like a cat. Run over by something.
Well, we've got listen. It could be this. We've got a saying in the South, and maybe others of you are familiar with this, and that is, if you're going to say that there's a lot of something or there's something's prevalent, like you might say, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a Baptist church, and that means you can't. I don't know why you would do this, but you pick up the dead cat and you swing it around and you let it fly. That's a real expression. Has anyone ever heard this?
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Very
Yeah,
real.
used it numerous times.
Yeah.
It's where we got the hammer throw in the Olympics from.
So I'd say Zach Bird could use that one.
It's up for grabs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I got that one. I got a Timothy Chalamet and Kylie Jenner breakup. And
we don't know who they are. We don't know who those people are.
This is what one of my church interns told me to say. So like whatever she says, I'm just like,
you guys.
And here's another.
Watch your tone about Tim. He's our Maction football expert.
He is. Fun story. He had a script. I got insider information on that.
Oh, yeah, of course he did.
Here's another one. Travis Kelce and T Swift. They will. I was going to say they were going to break up, but then one of my our admin assistant, he said no. T Swift is going to come out as pregnant. So those are my fun ones. Here's my serious one.
They're going to break up.
Here's my serious one. With the continued attraction and continued rise of Roman Catholicism, and I think also with the influences of Christian nationalism, and then the continued influence of the social justice movement and all the different, even the variations there. We've mentioned a little bit about the federal vision stuff earlier. If we're not careful, I think we're going to be in another season where we're going to have to defend the doctrine of justification. I love a lot of the retrieval movement that's happening. I think it's very good. I think it's very important to show that Reformed theology is Catholic, that we do have the history. Yes and amen to all that. and there's a lot of good things happening right now with the doctrine of God, and a lot of really, really great stuff. But I am getting concerned because it seems like we are mingling law and gospel, and we are losing things pretty significantly. And there's kind of this there's like a progressive version of this, and then there's an uber conservative version of this. And I'm just getting very concerned that we are losing the doctrine of justification. It's going to sneak up on us if we're not careful.
Yeah, Stephen Wolf tweeted something today that implies he would have excommunicated the Marrow men. So Marrow,
yeah, that's wild.
Marrow of Modern Divinity might be something we need to read.
Yeah, Gospel Sonnets, Ralph Erskine. Yeah, I think it's just a really important thing that needs to be brought up, and I think we have great position papers we need to go back to, but there really is there is this massive cultural movement going on right now where people are longing to put hope in something that is tangible. We're seeing this mass. A lot of this you actually see on Substack. There's a lot of people calling for, enchantment and less and less on technology, and just noticing the world more, and people are trying to move out of urban areas and get out with more land. A lot of that can be good. That's not all bad. Of course, it can always turn into kind of like the new homeschool movement, where you can take a good thing and make it an ultimate thing, and you can make it an idol. But you're seeing a lot of it with this attraction to very strict liturgy, and seeing the attraction to the Roman Catholic sacraments. And inevitably, if it's taken our eyes off of Christ, which the Marrow men really held on to, we're going to have a neo-nomianism again. And
nothing new under the sun. So we may revisit that. So I got to go to the Georgia guys. I marginalized Ryan F. Beasy.
Live from the penal colony.
Hey, he's the only guy on the show tonight whose congresswoman is Marjorie Taylor Greene. So Ryan, maybe you have some predictions.
I do have.
Does she ever visit your church? I have to ask. Does she ever come to First Presbyterian, Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia?
She has not, but
yeah,
I did see her in Lafayette when we were driving to pick up. No, we were driving to pick out our cow. We were going to buy half a cow, but we were driving to Lafayette to pick out half of our cow. We had to pick out the whole
front
cow.
half. Was front half or back half?
I just said, just give me all tenderloin. That's all. Okay. And he said, that's not how it works. But anyway, we were driving through Lafayette, and there's Marjorie Taylor Greene with her signs and her bleach blonde hair, I think is what Mrs. Crockett said about her. And I hollered out the window, "Go back to Atlanta." But this was before she was elected. We had a nice guy. I think his last name was Cowan. He was a Presbyterian from Dalton or Rome, real, conservative, real, but normal. But nonetheless, she is our congresswoman, and she does holler things at President Biden, and that's okay, because he did need to say the name Laken Riley, or Lincoln Riley, or whatever it was that he said. But in any case, she's never visited First Pres. Maybe she will after seeing this. But I do have some predictions for 2025. If now's the time to proffer those.
It is.
Okay. Well, I think the sacramental errors in the PCA will become more prominent, particularly Peta Communion and intinction. We'll have to start dealing with those. It's puzzling to me why someone who believes in Peta Communion would want to be in the PCA, do the sacraments not matter that much, that you can not, if you believe what you believe, then how can you withhold it? But so I think we need to probe those issues more. My second prediction for 2025 is that 24 EPC churches will join the PCA or begin the process of joining the PCA, and because of their aversion to the trends in the EPC. I know of 2 just in Ohio that are in the process of joining, and that's just one state. Of course, if you believe Ohio is real. I know there are some people who don't believe that Ohio is real. So if that's you, then just 22 EPC churches, I think, will join the PCA or begin the process this year. My third prediction, that it will continue to be a great time to be in the PCA, that it will continue to be the best time to be in the PCA, that every moment in the PCA is better than the last moment in the PCA. The PCA just gets better and better. That we don't need to make the PCA great again.
Every way, every day, in every way, we're getting better. Is that what you're saying?
We are just getting better. From the moment that ruling elder Mel Duncan stood up there in Dallas and read the Nashville statement, that is the moment that everything just kept getting better and better. Every moment in the PCA was better than the last moment. And I think that trend will continue.
Is your hair thickening, or have you grown like a half an inch in the last year?
My hair is thinning. Yes.
Oh, I thought thickening. If everything's getting better, you're going to be about 5'10" and have hair like Sean Morris by the next General Assembly.
I mean, I brought up turkey and leg lengthening surgery. I mean, is it possible that we get a mission trip that also involves hair plugs? I mean, these are real questions.
Greece, so,
I mean, these are things that could happen.
He's wearing those Skechers that are the thick soles.
Yeah.
I was at true story. I was at DSW a couple of weeks ago, I was in the clearance section and in the women's clearance section. Usually, I can find some real nice stuff for my wife in the clearance section because she's a size 6, and they had Heelys, and I almost bought her a pair of Heelys, but then I thought my wife is never going to wear Heelys. But in any case,
it's the thought that counts, though.
So Ryan, what's it like being the only person in your family with a pair now?
It's kind of disappointing because I don't have anyone to go healing with me.
I'm still waiting for soaps to make a comeback.
Well, we'll send some soap to North Carolina, and your family won't know what to do with it.
Well, continue with your list, Brian, unless you're done.
Yeah, I'm done. I think the fourth thing on my list was that Trump was surprised at his win the first time, and he had no plan. And now for his second term, he has too much of a plan. I mean,
that's also true.
We're about to annex Canada. But if you think about it, if the goal of Trump is to make America great, how do you make America great again except by making it greater? And in order to make America greater, you have to have Greenland, Canada. And if we did annex Greenland, we would be the second largest country in the world. But then we still wouldn't be great because we would only be the second. And who wants to be second? I mean, they don't even play your anthem. And so I think we would probably need to annex Russia at that point. And then we would be the greatest. Trump would have made America not just great again, but made America greatest.
I mean, geographically, it is the closest non-U.S. country to us. I mean, it's closer to us than Greenland. It makes sense.
Yes, even closer than Canada at some points. At the point where we are closest to Russia, we are closer to Russia than Canada. Think about that.
I'm pretty close to Canada.
Well, weather-wise, for sure. All right, Joe, what do you have for us? Besides background noise, I think you're on a different mic now, but we'll make it.
Oh, it's tight. Yeah, there's nothing to be done about that. Sorry. Mine are PCA based, in the serious portion and mostly serious and super serious. So the serious is, and some of these I'm going off of things that are happening right now as continuing more than sort of will start or will finish. The PCA will see a continuation of its leaders and those that are leading different places in the denomination who are less well known, and they'll continue to pop up and have more influence in their leadership throughout the denomination. PCA will be a less.
So are you saying there's a new generation of leadership? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not saying it will start. I'm saying it's already there. That the PCA will be less of a great men denomination and more of a regular guy denomination in many ways.
Is that
So
a mediocre
it sounds like you're
denomination?
campaigning. Sounds like you're campaigning, Job.
We all know where I am. Let's just,
Okay.
we know that's not me, but it might be some of you on here. But I think it's a good thing. Seems to me that the PCA is seeing a variety of guys that are leading well and doing great things, and not so obvious ways. Not that it's secretive, but just in different, regular, ordinary things. And I think that's good, and I think it's part of why we've seen the shift in the denomination. I think you'll continue to see that, and more understandably, rather than maybe we notice it. It's sort of there, more obvious. Next, I think that politics and political response to things that happen from the church will lessen. I think it will become less of a topic, broadly speaking. I don't think it will go away, but I think it will be less of a topic, which conversely, I think that some of the things that we're going to discuss are going to be more churchly matters. Those things are going to pick up.
Oh, okay. Counterpoint. We have two overtures requesting Christian nationalism study committees. And I think everyone knows there's no one in the PCA that's opposed Christian nationalism more than me, but I don't support those overtures because, they actually focus a lot on Moscow. And now, Moscow is at odds with great sections of the Christian nationalist guys. So that's I thought that might happen. That's one of the reasons it's such a moving target. I didn't know. I just didn't think it was wise. So, so we are going to have. I mean, the PCA has shown a reticence to jump into the political arena. We had a chance to vote on a Christian political violence overture, and I think there was another one. So I don't think we'll approve those. But I mean, let's say the Christian nationalism overtures fail in overtures committee, but there's a minority report, and then we get an hour, 45 minutes of debate on the convention. It's what it feels like, the assembly floor about that. So I'm not sure I agree that we won't be political, but who knows?
Well,
Who knows?
I wouldn't say. I'm more saying less. I don't think that it's. I think it's going to become less of a discussion continuously. And I mean, it's January, so who knows? But I'm of the opinion those won't really go anywhere, and if it doesn't go anywhere, I think it might validate what I'm saying. That it's not. We're going to talk about it, and it'll be hot for a little bit, but I don't think it will fill the airwaves, so to say, for long periods of time. But I guess I'll have to wait and see. But I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of just constant responses, blog posts, different things, podcasts and such on politics in the church. How does the church respond to this or that thing that happened? I think that's going to lessen. That's really what I'm going for. And yes, and that conversely, churchly matters will pick up as a conversation. And more so, I think you're going to see an increase of regular and ordinary things in the church worship, services, things the church does. I think that the regular and ordinary that is going to become more prominent. I wouldn't disagree with Wilson. There will be some who will want to do some other things, but I think that will become and continue more regularly. And this is one that can go a couple ways. I think while politics, as we think of it, or things like that, will decrease, I think moral and ethical talks are going to increase and potentially get worse. So
Well, and
things,
the abuse issue, as it's now being played out online, there are a lot
yes,
of allegations being made publicly and kind of litigated publicly. Which, if something's being completely ignored or covered up, maybe you've got to do that. But I don't
sure,
think that's what that is. I think we have an abuse. I don't want to offend anybody. We have an abuse industry almost. There are people who their job is connected to it. That's something I wanted to mention. I thought about the last couple of days. You're going to hear more about abuse. And, the piece, I really think relative to other denominations, the PCA actually has less of that. But because we have process to deal with it and we have kind of an engaged membership and ministers, and we communicate, we're just the right size to kind of be big enough to kind of make a difference, but small enough that everyone knows each other. When we have a controversy like this, word gets around, and there's a newspaper reporter in Nashville who covers the Southern Baptist Convention, but he keeps an eye on the PCA too, and including discipline cases, abuse cases, all that. So that's we're there. That we are going to hear more about that. That's not going away. There's still people not happy with the way we've addressed abuse. The mandatory background checks failed last year. I don't know if that issue's dead or not. People are not.
Does
over
any
that.
Presbyterian not do background checks at this point?
Not. I'm sure very few don't, and most churches do it too. But I'm just saying it's a cause celeb. It's an issue that's not necessarily going away.
yeah. I would also add that I think questions of sexuality, created order, different things, race. I think those things are not done, and I think they're going to be a little different than people will presume. And I don't really want to say more than that, but I do think that those things are going to come up in the church more. So I have a couple of others. Like I said, I'm going from serious to more serious to super serious. The PCA is going to follow the trend of America, and we're just going to buy the OPC, make it ours.
Hold on. That'll be
We tried it a couple of times. You got away. Enough's enough. You're coming in. We're just going to buy you.
Saruman tried that with the Ents.
I'm that guy at the base. I'm that guy at the baseball game.
Yeah. Well, we have we could use some churches in North Dakota anyway, so it'll be good to have some out there when we buy you guys. The next thing we're going to do is sort of like making Canada a 51st state. We're just going to make the ARP a sub-synod. Not going to give them full denominational status. So they're just going to be a synod for us. And
will we make them? Will we make them pay for it?
Oh, they're absolutely going to pay for it.
Okay.
They've got resources, so we could use them. So we're going to buy the OPC, make them a sub synod. The super serious. John Cena is going to win the Royal Rumble.
Oh,
It's happening, and he's going to fight Gunther, and Gunther's going to beat him. And then Roman Reigns is going to main event both nights of WrestleMania. Night 1, it'll be Rock Roman. Night 2, Roman Cody 3. And I'm not really sure how it's going to go yet. Does anybody on here have thoughts on that?
No.
You may be right on those pairings.
Yeah, I think that's where that's going.
Oh, the intellectual! I can't believe Presby is silent on this.
I'm honestly stunned. I just teed him up.
I was really waiting for Presby to come in with something.
You know he's on the can right now.
Yeah, something happened there.
Yeah,
I teed him up, and he just totally left it.
He's missing the wrestling. Mm.
So, but that's I just want that on the record.
Carrie,
my words.
Are you a wrestling fan, Carrie?
I was.
Okay, say me
I,
too.
I
I
dropped.
was when I
I
was
dropped.
12.
I dropped out from. I dropped out. Let's see. I dropped out somewhere around 2003. Started back up again in around 2009, 2010, and then dropped out again. Every once in a while, I watch people get interviewed with little shoot interviews, with little off the record interviews and things like that on YouTube, but nah, not watching or covering anybody right now.
All right. Well, I had a high opinion of your maturity, and that's verified. All right.
Thank
So, Resby, you're back. You missed wrestling talk,
Do
Resby.
you want me to go back over it?
No,
Yes,
I don't.
please.
Whatever.
I'll give them to you later, Resby. But they were really good predictions.
To be honest with you, I actually heard probably about 75% of them, and then as I was getting ready to hit the mute button, my computer froze, and I was just like, "This is what happens." Like it just, I'll just have to have a conversation with my wife about how many programs she keeps open on her computer before lending it to me.
Briefly lost Reed. I was going to go back. There he is. Reed, any reactions? You're a first time guest along with Kerry. We'll go back to him. I want to hear about how his experience with Presbycast over the years. But Reed, any reactions to any of the learned predictions and observations you've heard on the show tonight?
Well, I'm not enough of a wrestling freak to respond to Job's adroit comments there, so we'll leave them for you guys who know better.
But you live in Alabama. It must just be in the air. You must just pick it up by osmosis.
Oh, no. I do want to observe something about Wilson. I think he went in the direction of a lot of different concerns with Christian nationalism and where this is all going. I think there's an interesting parallel possibility here, namely that when guys were attracted to the Federal Vision, part of it was that it was offering a consistent expression of how you can raise your kids with hope that they're going to be safe and stable and secure in a relationship with Christ. And so it was not really a conviction of the spirit that was driving them. It was more of a cultural issue that was driving them. Same happens with homeschooling.
Sentiment.
Yeah. Same happens with homeschooling, classical education guys. And I'm a classical education homeschool guy. So, but a lot of families, they're attracted to this stuff because they think it's going to give them, to parlay off of a post you made recently, it's going to give them their best life now, their version of a prosperity gospel. And so I think there's the strong potential for a parallel with Christian nationalism, where we're seeing these guys begin to collapse and they're debating and arguing with each other over the value of Hitler, and I know I'm being a jerk and paraphrasing it that simple, but that's reality, what's going on there. And I think there's a strong potential for a number of fans to look at that, be turned off, get a bad taste in their mouths, and then turn around and look at the Roman Catholic Church's history of consistency in integralism and be attracted via that. I don't think they're going to be attracted through worship of Mary, although that's an odd one that came up recently. But I do think there's the chance for, well, these guys have a consistent track record. Let's explore the Roman Catholic Church a little more, and maybe that's the way to answer this. So that's something we probably keep an eye on.
I think that's a reasonable concern. Kerry, all this gets weird when you start bringing ethnicity into it. And even if you've got this interesting, nuanced definition of ethnicity, it's just, I don't think it's somewhere we want to go. And that seems like something you might have an opinion about.
Just a little bit. Let's see. Where are we going to end up? We're good.
That's a good question.
Where are we going to end up? Oh gosh, there's still a bad problem of folks talking past each other on the entire topic. There's still a bad problem of people with bad arguments on the conservative side and on the I can't say conservative. I can't say. I really can't say progressive because theologically, the majority of black churches are still very theologically conservative. They're not on board with the alphabet people movement right now at all. They are completely. They're like, yeah, that's a man. That's not a woman. That's a man. Yeah, they're not on board with that. So sociologically, we fall into a whole lot of the same places. Theologically, the same places. The biggest issue is I see a little bit more of 2025. Somewhere, some way, somehow, someone's going to start saying, hey, let's stop talking past each other and actually sit down and have actual conversations. It's real easy to shoot podcast after podcast back and forth with each other, or blog posts or Substack posts and everything, or even write books back and forth. One of the biggest problems that both sides tend to have with this conversation is that there are what Walter Martin used to call dogs in the manger. They can't eat the grass and they won't let the cows get at it. There are people on the conservative side who don't want to see any actual real discussions happen. So they keep throwing out as much disinformation and misinformation as possible, and they do things to stoke up people who are on their side to keep them angry at the other side so that they won't listen to them. And there are people over on the other side who are making a real big, what's the word I'm looking for? They're making a financial killing off of keeping racial anger and animus stoked up. We'll call them progressive for now, but they're really not progressive. But progressive side wise, looking in the other direction. And
most of us get up every morning not wanting to stoke up animosity with our neighbors, but there's actually a financial incentive for some people to do that on both sides. And there are people who really care how many people follow them or listen to them. I actually had a guy. This was the most amazing thing. He was a dissident right, far right guy, and he said, you've had your Twitter account for 9 years, and you only have 9,000 followers. You need to give it up.
I actually think I saw that tweet. I remember.
I thought if you think I care about that, but there are people. I used to be a journalist. I used to be a newspaper photographer, and this is back in the 80s even, and Garrison Keillor, Prairie Home Companion, big far left guy, but he was pretty perceptive, and he had a problem with journalists, and that sort of offended me. But his reasoning, you can't fault it. He said, I have a problem with people for whom my violent death is a career opportunity. So, and that's what we have online today. We have people that extreme conflict and civil war and animus is a career opportunity or a financial opportunity. And I don't think anybody on this show tonight cares how many people follow them, listen to them, or download them. I think we care about the church, and like I tell people, I would have almost no concern about Christian nationalism if I didn't care about the church. One of our friends who was supposed to join us tonight, he lives in a part of the country where this political stuff is rocking small churches. If you got a church with 200 members and you got a $700,000 annual budget, you can probably absorb the loss of a couple of families. There are small churches that can't do that, and they're in this hard place when these people with strange ideas join the church, can you say no? Can you say no to the people who want to give communion to their 3-year-olds, or who are going to constantly hassle the session that they're not saying enough about politics or social issues. So that's who my sympathy's for. I don't really care about it as a political thing. So again,
I would definitely agree with. I definitely agree with you on every single point right there. Definitely people on both sides that have something financially to gain off of it. Power, protection, platform, some sort of prestige. They sit on top of all of this stuff and they make money off of it. And at the end of the day, they end up sitting right next to each other at a funeral, laughing and yucking it up, or they're out at a dinner together, laughing and yucking it up, as though they never said any of those things against each other. And yeah, I care about the church. I care about my brothers and sisters in the Lord actually treating each other like brothers and sisters in the Lord. I care about us actually listening to each other and understanding each other and bearing one another's burdens, like Romans chapter 12 says we're supposed to do. Those are the things that actually concern me. We can get to that by actually sitting and listening to one another and not by following a social media personality somewhere. So, yeah.
Well, very good.
Except for PresbyCast. Follow PresbyCast all the time. All the time.
Well, no one should listen to every PresbyCast, but
we should have ended hundreds of episodes ago.
Well, some people think so. So let's end with this, and that is the black eye that the capital R Reformed label has gotten, and also the PCA in some ways, because there's all the talk about we're terrible at handling abuse, and we just got a bunch of terrible people in office. And then also every other crazy Baptist with a who really does care about this platform calls himself Reformed, but then says and does the most bizarre things. So I want to talk about the Reformed label. We're not going to convince everyone tonight that the definition of Reformed has been abused over the past 20 years.
I'm convinced.
I used to make this case all the time about, even with the Gospel Coalition, that they really threw that term around irresponsibly, and now we see the fruit of it. Now we see some really bad actors giving Reformed theology and even Presbyterian ecclesiology in some cases a bad name. So I'll just say briefly, and then we'll open it up, what I said in a tweet today, which is that most Christian nationalist people who call themselves Reformed are Baptists or CREC. I don't know of one NAPARC church officer who's a prominent figure in the Christian nationalism dissident right world. Not one. Yet we get tarred. There are a few officers and members and anons who say they're this or that. Who knows? But we can't actually let the Reformed label go. You have Southern Baptist churches that don't call themselves Baptist anymore, and you have PCA churches that don't use the word Presbyterian, and you have to be a sleuth and read source code to find out that they're PCA churches if you look really hard at their website, which irritates me a whole lot. But we won't get into that. So the Reformed label and even the PCA brand or the OPC brand, because there's a podcast out there that's focused on abuse that has done multiple show after show, dragging the little old OPC through the mud for the sake of a couple of alleged cases. So what do we do about the Reformed label and our Presbyterian labels? And I don't think 2025 is going to be kind to either one of those, but what do we do in the meantime? Ryan, you've got it. I know you have an idea about this.
Well, I think we need to not run from the label. We need to use it, and we need to use it in its proper context and describe what it means to be reformed. I remember when I was at RTS Jackson, the original RTS Jackson, Reformed Theological Seminary, and I was a TA for the Intro to Pastoral and Theological Studies, and the professor assigned the students as one of their first, two-page paper.
TA, that means terrible assistant. Is that what that means?
I really was a terrible assistant. Yeah, probably the worst one in the history of Reformed Theological Seminary and First Pres Jackson. But I was terrible. But the assignment was, what is Reformed theology, or what does it mean to be Reformed? And this was the first class that they were taking in seminary, the first paper they were going to do in seminary, and a lot of them said, well, to be Reformed is the 5 points of Calvinism. Or to be Reformed is the 5 points of Calvinism and the 5 soli of the Reformation. And so, and they were coming into seminary. They didn't know anything. Although when I entered seminary, I knew everything. And then realized how much I didn't know and then when I graduated seminary, I knew everything again. And now that I've been a pastor for 13 years, I realize I don't know anything. But there really is this idea that Reformed theology is just Calvinism and the solas of the Reformation, as opposed to this system of doctrine, of worship, of covenant theology that flows together. So we need to hold the line on that. We need to highlight. Scott Clark, I think, has done great work distinguishing, and in a winsome way. When he says Baptists are not Reformed, he's not mean about it. He just says, look, Baptists didn't even consider themselves Reformed until 5 minutes ago. And he gives the historical, theological reasons for that we are Reformed, we are Presbyterian, and the CREC is not. Baptists cannot be Reformed. That's not a put down. It's just a statement of fact that if you're not going to baptize your babies, that you might be Calvinistic. You are, certainly Christians. We love you. We can benefit. We can sharpen iron. Can't come to the table together for some reason. Or at least they can't, or we can't go in their churches but we need to use the term, and we need to, dare I say, police the use of the term winsomely, like Scott Clark does.
Predestinarian, particular Baptist.
Yes,
but not Reformed.
Well, let's recognize the Baptist contribution to culture and theology, fried chicken, and then we just move on from that.
Brad, I think one thing, BC, I'm glad you mentioned Scott Clark's recent articles and what he's brought up in the past. Those have been very, very helpful. But then also, even Carl Trueman and Robert Kolb's book, Between Wittenberg and Geneva, really showed that, Reformed Presbyterianism is actually closer to confessional Lutheranism than it is to our Baptist brothers. And yet we hold the distinction. And so I think it is going to be important to, let real Reformed theology please stand up. And part of that.
Here's a mind blower for you, Wilson. I think Daryl Hart asked this question. He says, well, how can there be Reformed Baptists, but there are no Lutheran Baptists?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. That's a really good one. And I think we're going to have to continue to come back to, as BC mentioned, covenant theology is going to be really key, especially going back to a lot of these 2025 predictions. I think covenant theology, when it comes to justification, sanctification, sacraments, Christian nationalism, kingdom, all that stuff, covenant theology really is going to be key. We seem to be kind of experiencing a much more miniature ad fontes type season, back to the sources, and particularly the sources of, for us, the confession and the standards, confession, the catechisms. And I think, frankly, people are reading through these. I've had people in our church and around who they'll read through them and they're like, I didn't realize all this was there. And I'm like, I know, it's awesome. Really, we just need to just keep going back and actually use it.
No, that's very good. And our late, I'm going to call him our late friend, but he hasn't passed away. Nick Bullock is with us, and Nick, are you from Texas? Late of Germany. Texas is just another form of Germany, right?
Pretty much. It's Lederhosen and tacos, right? Yeah, it's good to be on. Sorry, I'm a little late.
They each do some wonderful things with sausages. I mean, we should give credit where it's due.
Yeah, my town has a festival called Wurst Fest, where it's about sausage and beer. How bad could it be?
It's literally the worst, as you said.
So any 20, we did sort of allude to you with this, someone who's in an area of the country where there's a little more on the ground struggle with some of these political nationalist issues. But anything you want to share with us?
Well, one of the things that I'm concerned with is that while there are always theological, social, political fads, very many among our ranks generally are considering sort of this Christian nationalism fad to be a passing moment. And while that's true, it will pass. It won't remain forever. It won't be in the main. It is in the main right now, and I think the estimation of most political commentators that this is kind of the beginning of what this thing is going to look like, not the middle nor the end. And I think this is one of those places where Reformed theologians, Presbyterians, are particularly equipped doctrinally and historically to wade into this. I mean, obviously, our people have had differentiating views over the relationship of church and state over the years, whether it was in British Presbyterianism, Scottish Presbyterianism, Covenanter theology and history, or American theology and history and the relationship of the church and the state. Those are different, and the way the church has handled it is different. And I would think that Reformed and Presbyterian Christians would have good, sober, helpful, critical input regarding, again, Christian nationalism, the relation of church and state, the engagement of the local body and the ministry of the Presbyterian and evangelical churches with the civil sphere and with the magistrate. And so, rather than have, Presbyterian and Reformed people back away from the topic, I'd rather us run into it. In some sense, our people have been relatively quiet on the engagement of evangelicals in the political sphere. We have been a spirituality of the church people, and I get that. I'm, very beholden in a lot of ways to the spirituality of church position of that relationship. But I think a historical moment is here, and it would behoove us to be able to answer these things well and to care for our people in the midst of it, because, hey, people are being confused. People are being led in a variety of different directions. So, yeah, I feel like more than anything, the system of Reformed theology has answers, has helpful input to give to these issues.
All right, that's good. And I should tell everybody that there's some particularity of Nick's microphone. He does not speak with a lisp, but he sounded kind of lispy there. So Nick,
I'm on my phone.
Oh, okay. Well, Nick, you would be one that would support some sort of a Christian nationalism study, and of course, we'll see how that turns out. But I think the changing nature of it and the fact that a lot of people aren't really aware makes it difficult to push that. But I think maybe the fact that I don't know, the election's over and politics may calm down, may not. That might affect it too. But I did a Substack today with some quotes from Stuart Robinson, who wrote the book the Church of Christ an essential element of the gospel, and he said that the civil sphere, the magistrate, was supposed to help provide the stage for the church to work on. Now, he was not for establishment. Of course, we've got the line in the Confession or Catechisms about the state or nursing fathers. I think that's something. It's in the catechisms. I think it probably should have been revised in light of the American provisions. But I think you can view that as meaning we need law and order and prosperous, peaceful society so that the church can go about her business, which is all any pastor or church officer, I think, probably wants. We just want to be able to worship as we want to, and to do our thing. But there are Reformed resources for that in the Confessions, where there's helpful exhortations and teachings about it. And I think you're right. If anybody can speak to it, we can. Whether we will, whether we should in a certain way, remains to be seen. So. Now, what we haven't, we're already at an hour and a half. We haven't even talked about the whole Wesley Huff, Canadian apologist on Rogan thing. So let's just wrap up and let's do 5 minutes on this.
Brad,
go ahead.
You got to correct yourself. Future American apologists.
Okay, yeah. So after he's annexed, he'll be an American. So we can just eventual American is what we should call him. So in light of this very notable, and it was good. It was not complete, but this appearance of this apologist on Joe Rogan, of course, Rogan being very interested as he is, he's also very interested in UFOs. Let's remember this. He's interested in whatever people are talking about. But he was very interested in what this very solid Christian apologist had to say. So is everybody going to become a classical apologist now? Is 2025 going to be the year of apologetics because of something that happened on a podcast? So
yes,
let's hear quick thoughts on that. So yeah, so just like I hated to tweet this, and I didn't. I exercised restraint. I said, boy, everyone is this week. Everyone's an expert on scrub, forest management, and water in light of the California wildfires. So I think everybody will be an expert apologist very soon. But thoughts?
I'm just very glad that this has been very necessary, especially for being a pastor in a college town. I'm very glad that he called out very significant sub-Christian teaching of Jordan Peterson. Because he's trending in so many ways. He's attracting a lot of these young guys. And he has a line in there where he says, Wesley Huff said something about how, Jesus condemns moralism. And he'd have to explain that more. But that's a very good point, because Jordan Peterson is basically, it's still works righteousness. It's just with not a, divine Christ and missing the Apostles' Creed and all that. And there's no gospel. There's no good news.
Yeah, it's sinners. Good. It's good advice for people that have a lot of potential.
Well, if you recall, what was his point? It was that, Peterson is making Christ archetypal.
Yeah,
he's just Christ the exemplar. He's not Christ the Redeemer. And, that's kind of handy if you can take Jesus and say, well, ultimately he's a good example. But I don't really have to submit to him. Anyone can do that. And most, even atheists will say, possibly a good teacher, philosopher, somebody that said some good things, but not God, not who he said he was, at least.
Yeah.
So,
and really where, the place where Jordan Peterson has arrived is basically where the Fosdick and those guys were in the 20s. Good advice and moral exhortation, and you can get that anywhere. What you can't get is the good news that someone lived and died perfectly as truly God and truly man, and paid the price for your sins. And we know that he did because God approved of it by raising him from the dead. And then the Holy Spirit came to allow us to keep the law to some considerable or less considerable extent, depending on whether you're me or Presby. I guess that's how that shakes out. But I jest. But Wesley Huff
Someone's
didn't,
preaching with fire sauce. Exhorting with fire sauce.
Wesley Huff didn't really get to the gospel. He did condemn moralism, and I'm not saying he should have. I think it's good that he was personable and accessible, all those things, winsome, but that's not the end of it. And what I said, and maybe I'll write on this, is that, and that's the reason I posted the Stuart Robertson stuff today, there was nothing about the church. Maybe you don't lead with the church, but the church it's essential. We actually confess that outside of the church, there's no ordinary possibility of salvation. And salvation is ultimately what we're concerned with. I mean, it's not making a Christian nation or making the world better. It still is about the salvation of individual souls, souls who may be Americans or Peruvians or whatever they are. But we still are concerned with individual personal salvation. So, yeah. Any other thoughts before we wrap up? Do a couple more minutes.
Yeah, real quickly on Wesley Huff.
Yes.
If apologetics can be described as, to some degree, pre-evangelism, then I think Wesley did a fantastic job of meeting Rogan where his, it looks to me like his sincere intellectual struggles reside. He's got a particular worldview. He's got that gives him a particular set of authority structures. And Wesley came along and worked without offending Joe to challenge the conclusions that draw a lot of his authority structures. That's a good start. I mean, that was a healthy work. Now it's time to follow up. We don't want to see someone like Joe end up like Kanye West or Russell Brand.
Come on, we did an episode on him.
We don't want that. What we want is we want him to move beyond just the cultural fascination stage, which is how Joe makes his money. But something more. And I think Wesley is a good start.
Yeah, but we don't want to step on the evangelical rake of being obsessed with celebrity conversions or probable conversions. A new convert who's a public figure or someone interested, they need time and space, and they need to be left alone and kept out of the public eye. If they're,
you mean they shouldn't be baptized and ordained as a minister the same day?
Leave Denzel Washington out of this, but also leave Bob Dylan and Jane Fonda. The list goes on. If you're as old as me, you can remember a lot. Of course, Johnny Cash. I think maybe Johnny Cash was a believer, but I'm from Arkansas. My mom's grandparents lived next door to Johnny Cash. I knew who he was, and seeing him on the old Billy Graham stage was a little weird. So we that's evangelicalism, that's revivalism, noted for questionable decisions, and we don't have to do that. We don't have to.
Always Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, I tell people, I remember when Jimmy Carter was elected. I remember my mom being in tears because he was a Baptist. He was one of us. And how did that turn out? It's just, yeah. And there were some people who even, because Bill Clinton was a Baptist, that still bought him a little bit in the South, but that didn't last long.
Hey, he's got an airport named after him now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've never flown in there. It wasn't named that when I lived there.
Good airport. Great chilies.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope never to fly in there, but who knows what can happen. So any other thoughts on the year of apologetics, which is what we could be getting into?
Christopher Drew mentioned a little bit earlier that he's going to predicted the further decline of Russell Moore in Christianity Today. I think he's going to be out of Christianity Today sometime in the middle of the year. For whatever reason, some weird thing is going to happen, some weird scandal of some sort, and it's going to be a few steps too far for even him and his winsomeness and his approach. And I'm thinking middle of the year sometime,
So
sometime between August and September.
we've got a real prophecy here.
It's
So
a,
we'll
You know,
we'll
can I say something about that? That's interesting. I actually, I wanted to go there, Carrie, but I just was like, it's too soon. It's just too soon, too fast. I got to give it another year at least.
they're getting a lot looser in the things that they publish, and they've been drifting a lot more heterodox and heading toward unorthodox for a while now. Some people would say they've already been unorthodox for a while now. But
Well, no, we did a show on this, that the more than one probably, that the new center of evangelicalism is moving left, largely for egalitarian reasons. So that's something we could have talked about, and that's probably the safest prophecy, that evangelicalism as a whole is going to move left, more progressive, more egalitarian, led in part by people like Russell Moore and Ed Stetzer and Rick Warren, who nearly tore apart the Southern Baptist Convention over these issues. So that's a safe bet, I think. But yeah, you don't want scandal and moral crisis. We're going to see that. We'll see it from all camps. But there's one in particular that I think it's almost inevitable when a movement is involved in just what I would call really hyper patriarchy, and I think Nick Bullock knows what I'm talking about. Usually, there are things below the surface that tend to come out and bubble up, and we want the best for all God's people, and we don't want those things to happen. But it won't surprise me if and when they do. So, Nick, since you were last, I'll give you any last words you have. Since you were last to join, you were tardy. You should be sent. You should be given a slip and told to come back next month. But we're going to give you the last word.
I think for 2025, as we see Christianity get unusual attention, whether it's through political commentary, politicians making public statements outwardly claiming to be Christian and saying that coheres with their political actions, references, and opinions, whether it's Rogan having an apologist on. Now, we can't overlook the reality of the viewership of Rogan. He had more of an impact on a national election than news sources did just by interviewing Donald Trump. Now, his interview of Wes will not have the same sort of views. It won't have the same sort of spread, but nonetheless, it's significant. It's a really magnificent group of viewers, if you think of it. Not that they are magnificent, but there's just so many people in the number. So there's seems to be an uptick, whether it's that or the conversion of celebrities to some level of Christian comprehension. The real concern that I have is whenever the church becomes socially acceptable, whenever Christianity as an institution seems to be a fad, the heart religion and the heavy weight of the gospel that saves men, women, and children tends to be ignored. It tends to become a social Christianity, a cultural Christianity. And am I any more thrilled with that than a hostile society, a society that would have the form of Christianity but not the spirit of its salvation? I have no interest in that. In fact, I think that's just as detrimental, if not more detrimental, to the open and regular preaching of the evangel. And I think we need to be very concerned for this and have a lot of prayer that the church would be kept from that. Also, that the church wouldn't fall into the snare of being a distracted ministry that forgets its first love, that finds good Christian teaching on 15 different topics and devolves within itself to simply be happy conservative commentary rather than life-giving evangelical preaching of a saving message. And so my prayer for the year to come, if I was to say anything, is that the church would love Christ, would look for his return, and would preach him clearly to men, women, and children, and that we wouldn't be distracted with a happy day of conservatism just because it has flirted with us, but we'd be looking for a coming kingdom. That's what I'd say.
Yep. Well, we put no confidence in princes, nor for help on man depend. They shall die, to dust returning, and their purposes shall end. So don't get too high or too low on these political issues. But you are allowed to get high on Presby, who does his thing like no other. His contributions tonight have been notable, and I'm sure he'll have a good word for us.
Well, I realize I haven't given my lone prediction, which I thought up about 7/8 of the way through the show tonight. We started the show by going to Wilson, at which point I'm going to offer a tangential prediction to his noted history, and that is that Bill Belichick will not coach a single game at the University of North Carolina. I think that with a buyout clause of barely $1.5 million, that another team will come calling from the greater and higher league, and he'll depart, and all that hoopla will be for nothing. So that's all I really got. We'll see how it goes. For those of you who are checking scores, it looks like it's going to be someone versus Notre Dame in the national championship game, which is on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is on Inauguration Day, which is on college football national championship game day. So heck of a Monday coming up. They even gave us the holiday for it. So as you prepare for that, please don't be an Erdman.
I'm proud to say I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of the name of Jesus. I'm proud to say I'm not ashamed of Jesus. I'm proud to say I'm not ashamed of Jesus. I'm proud to say I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of the name of Jesus. I'm proud to say I'm not ashamed of Jesus. I'm proud to say I'm not ashamed of Jesus' name.
What's wrong with you people?